all have our if we could all have our cameras on and then we'll make a start. I've only got one question so far, or topic area to go through that Armin sent. So if you do have any questions, just give me a shout. Let me get us on a whiteboard. Right, go. Um, so Armin, I believe you said you wanted to go um through externalities in consumption and production, understand why they lead to under or over consumption. All right, that's fine. Um, so we're gonna do positive and negative consumption slash production. Anyone got anything else that they would like us to brush up on, cover?
Could
I
we,
can't. That's fine.
sorry,
You
could we
go.
just pass over AD and the level of economic activity, if that's okay?
So AD, and what in particular do you mean by the level of economic activity?
I think like just more like how it affects the economy and the determinants and stuff like that. Um, and like just sometimes the elasticity probably as well. And that's it.
Elasticity of AD or elasticity of,
Of demand, sorry.
yeah. Anyone got anything else? Okay, right. So we'll make a start on the first one. So positive and consumption externalities. Um, but can anyone tell me what a externality is? So how are we defining an externality?
A cost or benefit to a third party consumer who's not involved in the transaction.
Yeah. To the third party that's not involved in the market transaction. Right. So the other things that we need to understand is what we mean by so what's the private, so external and social. So what's the private benefit? I haven't got any ideas what the private benefit is.
Is it the benefit for the consumer upon consumption?
So it's going to be correct. We'll give a more generalized example. So it's essentially going to be the benefit to the individual or firm, yeah, associated in the market transaction. So we can think of so if you as a consumer purchase a good, you receive a private benefit from it. The firm receives a private benefit in terms of income. Yeah. The external benefit that we've talked about, it's going to be the benefit to the third party. And what's our social benefit?
private benefit plus external benefit.
Yeah, so it's going to be the private benefit plus external benefit, which is the total benefit to society. Yeah. The society in this sense is yourself and other people. That makes sense, right? It's everyone. Yeah, no one is neglected because the private individuals are the people who are the ones purchasing the good, and then the external individuals, the third parties, anyone who doesn't but is affected. So, and that's the same with the private cost. It's the cost associated to the individual firm. The external cost is going to be the cost of the third party, and the social cost is all the costs accounted for, right? So normally in a functioning market, right? So in a market where um, we're at, so we've got price and we've got quantity. Yeah. So in a normal functioning market, what would happen is that we are at equilibrium. So at point equilibrium, we have the price and we've got the quantity, right? And um, these show us the social optimum. Yeah. And that's because it's the point where the marginal social cost equals the marginal social benefit. So in this market transaction, everyone is accounted for. So the private individuals who are purchasing or like dealing with the good or service, and those who aren't. So at this point, we can also we have allocative efficiency. Yeah. And that's because essentially at this point, you can't make anyone better off without making someone worse off. Yeah. So if you was to make more of the good, right, you would be harming other individuals because you wouldn't be accounting for the extra cost. Yeah. So at this point here of allocated efficiency, right, the consumer is maximizing welfare, but also the correct amount of the good is being produced. Yeah. So now if we're going to go back to what Armin said, so if we go through positive um, consumption, so a positive consumption externality, can anyone give me an example?
Healthcare.
Healthcare, yeah. Going to be a bit more specific, we can say vaccinations. Yeah. So if we're going to think about it, what's the private benefit to getting a vaccination?
You don't get sick.
Yeah. So it's for your own health, right? It helps you out. What's the external benefit?
Herd immunity.
Yeah. So you can prevent anyone else getting a disease because you're vaccinated, so it stops you from spreading that disease. And the social benefit is going to be both of those benefits added together. Yeah. But so what what is the potential cause, or like what's the potential problem that we have with vaccinations? Right? Or can anyone give me an example what type of good this would be?
There's
So yeah, go on.
there's imperfect information regarding the like benefits of vaccinations. So some people don't get it because they don't realize how good it is for them.
Yes. So it's imperfect information. That's correct. Anything else? What might be causing the underconsumption of vaccinations?
Because it's
Not many people. Oh, I was gonna say not many people know about it.
Yeah. So yeah. Any other causes? We went through quite a lot of them when Alicia did the session. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted someone.
Could you say like side effects?
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Would you say like computational issues in the sense that people don't realize that they're beneficial?
Um, yeah. So anything else? Are we all happy with that? So, so yeah. So what we're gonna have here is essentially is we is individuals yeah, individuals that we spoke about, they don't fully understand um they don't fully understand the benefits of vaccinations, how they benefit the external person, right? Because as individuals, we're quite what's the word? We're quite selfish. We think about ourselves and we're not thinking about other people. So this is an example of a merit good. Sorry. Yeah. And this is a good that's underconsumed, and that's because people don't know its true value. Yeah. People don't know its true value because they don't understand the external benefit. So they underconsume it because they don't get that the more of this good they consume, the better it is for other people. Yeah. So in a perfect world, what would happen is we have this scenario. Yeah. Or we have our social optimum because the everyone accounts for the cost, all the costs associated. Everyone accounts for all the benefits, right? However, we don't live in this perfect world, right? We've got this issue of imperfect information, especially, right? That's causing people not to understand what the what the effects, what the positive effects, right? The external benefit to other people of consuming vaccinations. So, whenever it's consumption, so we have our marginal social cost. Whenever it's consumption, it's always going to be the demand curves, right? So we have our marginal private benefit. Yeah. However, the externality is being ignored. Yeah. So in reality, what would happen is we have this scenario. This good is underconsumed and therefore underproduced. However, a, if we was to sort out some of these issues and we gave everyone perfect information, what we would expect is, well, everyone would just be like, okay, so now I understand the benefits of vaccinations. Their demand would shift to the right. Yeah, demand would shift to the right, quantity would increase, and we would move from, so we have E, which is your price and quantity, and then we'll have E1, which is our price one and our quantity one. Yeah. So at this first equilibrium, we've got market failure. And here we have our social optimum. We have a social optimum because we are now consuming at the point where MSC equals MSB. Right, marginal social cost equals marginal social benefit. Everyone is accounting for um, the all the costs and all the benefits, right? Because now we've told the consumer, right? We've given information about the external benefits. We've said, right, so if you get vaccinated, you're protecting tens and thousands of people that you bump into every single day, right? So they go, okay, perfect. Like, I understand this. I'm going to demand more of the vaccinations. Demand goes up, prices go up, quantity goes up. Yeah. Because firms now will say, well, we'll just try and maximize our profits by essentially raising the prices. Yeah. So, any questions where we're at so far? So the other diagram that you need to know is the negative production externality. So with a negative production externality, anyone give me any examples?
Could you say pollution from petrol
Yeah.
and diesel cars?
Yeah, pollution, and that's through like cars. Yeah,
Resource depletion.
yeah. Any others? So the airline industry is always an easy one. Right. So what's happening here is that the firms, right, they're overproducing the good. Yeah. So we have MPC and we've got MSP. So at this point, E is the price and the quantity, and we have market failure. And that's because we are ignoring the externality. So in this sense, firms are ignoring the fact that the external cost to individuals, is that they'll have effects of pollution. So there's a stat out there, something like per year, I believe around 28 to 40,000 people die per year because of polluted related diseases in the UK. I want to say it's the UK, it might be London. But which is a crazy stat, right? So that's their justification of having ULEZ. Yeah. Reduce the amount of pollution in the inner city means that we reduce how many people die. Yeah. So that's the external cost. People are being affected by pollution. Yeah. But these firms don't account for that. They're only thinking about their costs, right? When they charge the price for an airline ticket. Yeah. So why do you think people are ignoring or firms are ignoring the externality?
To make profits.
Yeah, to obviously to maximize profit. But what can you tell me about the externality in particular? So this will kind of relate to the first one actually as well. Has anyone got a way to measure how much pollution is in pounds? No. So the one of the biggest issues that we have is that there isn't a monetary value for externalities. Yeah. We can't say, right, for every kilogram of CO2, right, is equal to X pounds, right? So for the firm, because they haven't got a way to measure it, they just ignore it, right? So when they think about the cost of airline travel, they're just like, okay, this is the cost of petrol, the cost of having a license, the staff, and so on, right? They just account for all those costs, and then that's how they set their price. They just think about their private costs, and that's because the externality, right, can't be monetized. It can't be quantified. Yeah, so they just choose to ignore it. Yeah. So in a perfect world, again, the government would just supply the perfect level of information, where they would say, right, this is the conversion for your CO2. This is how much you should be accounting for it. So then the firm would say, right, I understand now that for every kilogram of CO2, it's £10, right? That's the external cost to an individual. So supply would shift to the left because the cost of production would rise. Cost of production would rise and would be at this new point Q1 and P1. And then we have E1. So now E1 is our marginal social cost is equal to our marginal social benefit. So it's going to be our social optimum. Yeah. And that's because we've given the individual the perfect level, or the firm, perfect level of information to understand how to internalize the externality. And then when we say internalize the externality, it means that we're no longer ignoring it. It's now part of the market transaction. Yeah. It's now being accounted for. So now these firms are thinking about the external cost. So if we now go back to our earlier one with the consumption, right? The reason why people don't, like we've said here about the imperfect knowledge, lack of knowledge, computation errors, they don't know, right, the value, the monetary value of the external benefit, right? If you could say to someone, right, if you take a vaccination, you're saving X number of lives, right? And put a hard figure on it, people would probably better understand, say, okay, so I'm having a positive impact, right? So people will be more inclined to do it. However, you can't do that. There isn't a value for every vaccination, you're saving X number of lives. So people just choose to ignore the external benefit and just underconsume this good, right? And in this sense, the firms overproduce the good because they shouldn't be producing this amount here at Q. Yeah. But instead, when they have the perfect level of information, they do produce here at sorry, just moving that. They they do understand all the information and they produce at Q1. Yeah. So any questions so far?
Quick question. When we're talking
Mhm.
about negative externalities, is it always demerit goods? And for positive, it's always merit?
So we only talk about merit and demerit when it comes to consumption. Yeah. So a demerit good will be a negative consumption externality. Yeah. So if you think about it, the curves will be the other way around. So it'll be something like this. So it'll be that the good is overconsumed, right? But the demand should be a lot lower once people realize the external effects that it has on people. Yeah. So when we think about merit or demerit goods, it's always in consumption. The consumer is always over or under consuming the good, which is leading to the over or under production of the good. Yeah.
But would it not like also be to like overproducing merit or demerit goods?
Um, so that makes like total economic sense in the sense of in this sense here, they are producing a demerit good, quote unquote, because it's a good that has a negative effect. But we don't try and associate mm, like a merit good and a demerit good with the production. We always just leave that to the consumption side. So the point you're making is very correct, just for the simplicity of your economics at this level. You just, that's how you know it. Merit goods are goods that are underconsumed. Demerit goods are goods that are overconsumed. Yeah. All right. So just to finalize and add a bit more to our diagrams. So the other thing that we need to talk about is the dead weight loss. So is anyone, there's an easy way to always get the dead weight loss, right? Anyone have any ideas?
Isn't it where you start at the initial equilibrium and then you do it in the direction of your shift?
Yes. So I always say start off wherever market failure is. So it's here. So at E, and you just go towards your new curve, right? And that shows you your dead weight loss. And what is the dead weight loss?
It's the loss of welfare
Yes. So why are we losing welfare? Why
because
is society?
we're not producing, we're not consuming at the social optimum.
Yeah. So it's the loss in efficiency to the economy or to society because we were experiencing market failure. So in terms of consumption, so in this positive consumption, the dead weight loss could be the number of people who have unfortunately lost their lives already because of the underconsumption of vaccinations. Yeah. In terms of it's a loss that you can't recover. That's the other thing as well. So you can't reverse it. We can't just now get vaccinations and then those people resurrect from the dead. Like, so it's a loss. There's a permanent loss to society. Same with on the production side, we can see the deadweight losses, the environmental degradation that we've already done, right? That can't be reversed, or the people that have died from um, environmental issues, environmental related diseases. Yeah. So does this kind of answer your questions about? Because obviously we're not going through uh, the interventions, but does this answer your question about under and overproduction or under and
Yeah,
overconsumption?
thank you.
Yeah. So on the platform as well, I would recommend also going through the lesson on the platform, but also I have done like a recording where I've sat down and talked you through every single the diagram as well. So I'd recommend watching those two. So the next part that we were going to talk about was where was it? Economic activity. Um, and the determinants of aggregate demand. So, so how would we define aggregate demand? What's our definition for aggregate demand?
It's like the total demand for goods and services in an economy.
Yeah. So it's going to be total goods and services produced within an economy. And it would be at a given price level and time period. Yeah. Or another shortcut way is we say it's just literally C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Yeah. So so now to gonna talk about the components. So in terms of the relative importance of the components, right? So C stands for consumption, and that equates, so in the UK especially, that's around 60 to 65% of AD or GDP, right? The way we're measuring AD is going to be gross domestic product, right? So we think about the total goods produced, but if we think back to our circular flow of income, right? We assume in the circular flow of income that the number of goods produced is equal to the income, which is equal to what's the last thing that
Output.
so output would be the goods produced.
Expenditure.
Yes. Yeah. So when we did the circular flow of income, we basically said, right, all of these are equal, so we could measure GDP using every single one of them, right? But we have always just naturally used production or output. right? And that is GDP. So consumption is around 60 to 65% of AD, right? So consumption really drives growth in the UK economy. Investment equates to around 15 to 15%. Sorry, 15 to 20%. I don't know, I've done that twice. Government spending is around it can be around 20%. And then your imports and exports, I don't actually have a figure for them. But what we tend to find is that we run a trade deficit. Yeah. So that means our exports are less than our imports, right? And that's part of the reason is because we consume so much, right, that we love to import goods. Yeah. We've got in the UK, we've got quite a large marginal propensity to import. Yeah. So the AD curve. So our AD curve is going to be downward sloping, similar to a demand curve, right? So it's downward sloping and it shows the relationship between the price level and output or real output. And the relationship it shows is obviously that there is a inverse relationship. Yeah. There's an inverse relationship. So as prices decrease, so as the price level decreases, the real output demanded increases. Yeah. And this is explained through the wealth effect. Right. So lower prices means that your real wealth, yeah. So if inflation decreases, your real wealth is higher. So you will purchase more goods. So output will increase as the price level falls. We have the interest rate effect. And that is that lower prices mean that the real interest rate falls. So that will increase investment and consumption. Yeah. Then we've got the net exports effect. So if the prices of UK so if UK prices fall, that means your exports are relatively cheaper. Yeah, so that will boost demand. Yeah. But also if you're going to import a good, something from your local supermarket now might be cheaper than it was importing. So imports will fall. So boosting aggregate demand. So as prices fall, we move this way. Yeah. Are we all happy with that?
Yep.
Yeah. So in terms of movement along the AD curve, right? Similar to how we talked about it in our first year, right? A movement is always going to be a contraction or extension, and that will be because of the fall, or I guess it will be the change, I should say, in the price level will lead to a movement along the AD curve. And then a shift of the AD curve will be if there's a change in one of these components. Yeah. So if there's an increase in the component, the AD curve shifts to the right. If there's a decrease, it shifts to the left. Yeah. Are we happy with that so far?
Yep.
All right. So in terms of the components, we will just have to like fly through them. Right. So consumption. So like we said, consumption is going to be household spending. So it's so the goods and services demanded by households. Yeah. So what factors do you think will affect consumption, right, or household consumption?
Population size.
Could you say a decrease in interest rates?
Yeah. So interest rates. Anything else?
Disposable income.
Yeah.
The relative price of substitutes and complement goods.
Um, Not necessarily. That's a very much a micro factor that's going to affect like an individual's demand. I'm thinking more of the overall demand.
Can you talk about inflation as well?
No, because remember we've said that a change in the price level will only lead to a movement along the demand curve, the aggregate demand curve.
Confidence.
Yeah. Consumer confidence. Anything else?
Could you talk about the purchasing power or the exchange rates, or is this not?
No, exchange rates won't really affect consumption. That's more so. Um, that's more so for our net exports. So other things that we can talk about, wealth. Yeah, if wealth changes, it's going to affect demand, aggregate demand, and I guess that is. I'm just trying to look at my list. That's pretty much everything, right? So with confidence, we're also going to think about expectations. Yeah. So population, quite self-explanatory. The more people there is, the higher the consumption levels are. Yeah. Interest rates, it's going it's to do with the cost and reward of, so the cost of borrowing and the reward of saving. Yeah. So if the interest rate changes, it affects how much we consume. Disposable income, again, self-explanatory. The more money you have, the more you're able to consume. Yeah. If you because we think disposable income is the amount you have left after income tax and or any benefits that you receive. Um, we also consumer confidence. The more confident you are about the economy, your job, and all these things that surround you, the more likely you are to spend. Yeah. Um, Also, expectations. So if you expect like the that I don't know prices are going to go up, or the cost of living crisis is going to stay around, or there's going to be a threat of war, that might affect your aggregate demand. Yeah, you might bring forward purchases and demand more now, or delay them. Yeah, and then again with wealth quite similar to our disposable income. The more wealthy we feel, the more likely we are to spend. So, any questions?
No.
All right, perfect. So the next one we have investment. So with investment, right, it's going to be the amount that obviously businesses spend on like new capital assets, machinery, factory technology, and so on. Yeah. What factors do you think will influence investment?
Animal spirits.
Yeah. Would you like to explain?
That's basically just confidence for businesses.
Yep. Anything else?
Interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation.
Again, it won't be inflation. We've said that a change in the price level is only going to lead to a movement along the demand curve, the aggregate demand curve.
Oh, I don't think I understand what you mean when you say that. Could you please
Okay,
explain it?
yeah, that's fine. So basically, we've said here that our aggregate demand curve shows a inverse relationship, so a negative relationship between the price level and output, right? So the cheaper prices are, or the lower prices are, the more people demand, right? But similar to how we've said in like first year, right? The change in prices is never enough to shift demand. Yeah, that has to be another factor. So these three effects explain why the relationship is downward sloping. Yeah. So if prices decrease, yeah, it means, let's say, for example, the net export effect, it means that um prices decrease, exports will increase in value, right? They're cheaper, so businesses will be able to sell more exports to other countries. But also, you're less likely to import goods now because you can now go to your local supermarket and purchase it for a lot cheaper. Yeah. So a change in price level will only ever lead to AD moving. We only ever leads to us moving along the demand curve, aggregate demand curve. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh, but what you're saying is like in this case you want it to shift.
Yeah. In this case, we want it to shift. We want to talk about what is going to cause a new AD curve.
Okay.
Yeah. So, business confidence, interest rates, anything else for investment?
Technological change.
Uh, um, that's more technological changes will more affect the aggregate supply than it will business investment, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, because I was thinking like because if there's more technological like advancements, then businesses would want to invest in new like stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
so that'll be quite linked with this other one, right? So yesterday we talked about economic growth. We talked about the accelerator effect. Yeah, so
yeah.
if basically if there is a lot of there's a lot of growth in the economy, so like you could say there's a lot of like technological improvements. Obviously if there's technological improvements, it's going to help shift, right? LRAS to the right. So output will increase, which means there's growth, and then that will lead to accelerator effect. AD shifts to the right. So that's how we could explain that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Other factors is going to be the demand for exports. Yeah. Um, Consumption will affect business investment. Any like government interventions, so like regulation, taxes, subsidies, all that stuff. And we could even think about like, I guess this kind of links to the interest rate, access to credit. So if it's quite easy to borrow money or there's a lot of finance available, it's going to incentivize business investment. So, any questions on investment? All right. So next one we have government spending. So, what is government spending?
Is it when government spent money on healthcare and
Um,
education, for example?
yeah, so it's going to be like, so we think of government spending as the spending on public services. Yeah. So we think of things like terminology you might hear is current spending. So this is day-to-day spending on running things like the NHS, schools, and so on. Yeah. And then the other type of spending that they have is capital spending. And that's on things like investment in infrastructure, which will increase long-term productivity. Um, so what factors do we think will influence government spending?
Economic conditions.
Yeah. So economic conditions or the trade/business cycle. Yeah. So in a recession, we'd expect that AD will increase because governments will stimulate AD by spending more, and this will reduce unemployment. That's how the Keynesians view it. And in a boom, right, they're going to reduce how much they spend to try and reduce how much inflation there is, or to maybe pay back their national debt. Yeah. Any other factors?
Could you say the political party that's like in control?
Yeah. So you'd expect the Labour spend more, Conservatives spend less because they believe. So your Labour is like more of your Keynesian view. They believe that government spending is the pivotal part to generating economic growth because we have like the multiplier effect. And then your Conservatives believe in more of a free market approach. They believe less spending, right, more influencing markets will lead to growth. Any other factors? Uh, we can talk about fiscal policy. Yeah. So fiscal policy, like expansionary fiscal policy, would increase government spending. So AD would shift to the right, and contractionary fiscal policy would decrease government spending and shift AD to the left. You could even argue like the demographic, right? So if you have a aging population, the government is going to spend more money on things like pensions, healthcare, social care. Yeah. A youthful population might demand more education, childcare, family support, and so on. So in 2023, the UK was spending around 124 billion on pensions, on state pension. But state pension is basically a Ponzi scheme anyway. The way I see it is you guys are basically paying for, so the working people are basically paying for, by your taxation and national insurance pays for the next generation's pensions. And then when you then retire, your kids are basically paying for your pension. Right? That's literally like the simplest way I always think about pensions. Um, any questions on government spending?
No.
No. So now we're going to talk about net exports. So net exports, what is net exports?
Exports minus imports.
Yeah. So it's going to be X minus M. Anything else? So yeah, on exports is going to be the imports. So exports minus the imports, right? The exports is how much, what the value of goods that we sell to other economies. Imports is the value of goods that we purchase from other economies and bring them into the UK. Yeah. We can either think about this as a trade surplus or a trade deficit, right? What factors do you think will influence the net exports?
Exchange rate.
Yeah, the exchange rate. And that's because if the exchange rate appreciates, right, imports become cheaper. So it will lead to an increase in imports, and exports become more expensive to other countries. So they will decrease how much they export. So that will lead to a contraction in AD. AD will shift to the left. Yeah. Any other factors?
Trade policies.
Yeah. Trade policies. In particular, we're going to think of things like protectionism. So your tariffs, your quotas, your export subsidies, all those things are going to affect the amount you export and import. Because if you put a tariff on a good, it becomes more expensive. So you reduce how much imports there'll be potentially. But then that can have a undesired effect, like with what's happened with China and America. They went for a trade war. So then it potentially impacts your exports as well. Any other factors? So we said that the UK they have a high marginal propensity to import. So we can also think about real income. So an increase in income can potentially lead to more imports. Yeah, because the UK typically spends more on imports due to the high marginal propensity to import. Yeah. So an example I've got is during 2014 and 2016, the UK real wage slightly rose, which led to the trade deficit widening because a lot of people were consuming more imports. And typically it's because the imports are like luxurious goods. Yeah. Think about like your fashion brands, your cars, all these things are typically the things that we import in when our income rises. Yeah. Um, Other factors we're going to think of is like the state of the economy, well, like the world economy. So if like a lot of your trading partners are experiencing growth, they're going to demand more of your exports. If they're having issues in their country, then your exports are going to decrease. Yeah. So, for example, 45% of the UK's exports go to the EU as of 2022. Yeah. But when there was the 2008 slump, it reduced how much exports the UK was selling. So after the 2008 global financial crisis, the UK exports fell by more than 10%. Obviously, that depends on like who you trade with. Non-price factors, so like quality and stuff, will affect the exports and imports. So if you've got like new innovative products, then they can boost the amount of exports. And then finally, we're going to talk about relative prices / inflation. So if your economy, let's say inflation in your economy is 3%, but in another economy it's 7%, right? Because your goods are cheaper, yeah, it's going to increase exports because they're going to buy from you. Yeah, so exports will increase, but you'll buy less from them as well, right? Because prices are cheaper, so imports will decrease, right? These things together will shift AD to the right. Yeah. Are we all happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the components. In terms of elasticities, we don't have the time. So what I'll say to you is on the platform, do the lesson, and there is a recording of me walking through every single one of them last year. And then if you still have any questions, then just give me a shout, and then I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
No problem. Any quick questions anyone's got? All right. That's fine. So what we'll do is, so we don't have a session for about 2 weeks, I believe. So the next session is on the 3rd of Jan. So I'll see you guys then. What I'll do is I will post the questions closer to the time. And if you have any questions whilst you're revising, just give me a shout. More than happy to explain things. And so on. So yeah. If that's everything, then I'll see you guys in about 2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Have a good Christmas.
Thank you, and you
Merry
too.
Christmas.
Yeah, thank you.
Christmas.
See you guys.